Welcome to the sixth Prerna Circle. And before we start, I thought we could just go over briefly about what the objective of having a Prerna Circle was. I'm sure a lot of you might be familiar with it, but a brief would help the newbies as well. So, Prerna Circle. So before I start, I would also like to introduce my co-facilitator, Sharik from Sampoorna Consortium. So briefly about Prerna Circle. Prerna Circle is imagined as a knowledge-sharing platform, which also helps in reflection, discussing different aspects of the theme at hand, and collectively sharing knowledge, thoughts, suggestions with each other in the hope of leading to a mutual learning of everybody, right? So that is briefly about Prerna Circle. So for the sixth Prerna Circle, we have taken the theme of how we can design and implement whole child development programs for communities in adverse conditions, specifically tribal populations, both from a programmatic and systemic lens. So before we start, I would like to kind of give a brief also about the organizations who have agreed to be panelists for our Prerna Circle today. So we have two renowned organizations who work on whole child development programs with marginalized communities here, especially with tribal communities, to share their knowledge and experiences with us. So firstly, we have Pratigya. Pratigya is a Jharkhand-based social enterprise driving grassroots initiatives and community program in urban and rural areas of Jharkhand on issues of education, child protection, and development. So Pratigya is one of the first organizations in Jharkhand that initiated working on life skills, right? Personality development and financial education for deprived children. So life skills program that they have developed, Srijan Bachpan, has been recognized and featured globally in Youth Solutions Report 2019, published by SDSM Youth. And so Srijan Bachpan is a comprehensive life education program which is run by Pratigya to develop social, emotional, ethical learning among children who are either connected or not connected to the school setting. And it revolves around three main objectives, which is active participation of children in different activities at school, enhanced academic performance, as well as to nurture them as aware and responsible members of the society. And so the Department of Social Welfare, Department of Health, and Department of Education have also recognized their efforts and are incorporating similar training aspects, etc., into their programs. So that is briefly about Pratigya, and we also have CINI here today with us. So CINI is a NGO working for poor children in India for over the last 4 decades. And CINI's overarching aim is to enable poor people, women, children to take control of their lives and have a share in sustainable development. So CINI is engaged in strengthening implementation of Rashtriya Kishore Swasthya Karyakram, RKSK, through government civil society partnership in 5 identified districts of West Bengal and Jharkhand. So the program helps in developing a holistic, scalable, and sustainable model of a common adolescent development program through creating a gender-sensitive and adolescent-friendly environment using twin strategies of viewing adolescents as leaders and ensuring community participation. So CINI is working towards holistic development of adolescents through their other programs as well. So this is briefly about the two renowned organizations who are with us today. And I now invite Sharik to introduce the panelists from these organizations.
Thank you very much, Sarah. You have given such a detailed, distinguished panelist organization. We are really fortunate to invite you, and we are also thankful both of them to attending this Prerna Circle. This is the sixth Prerna Circle. So I am going to start with the introduction of Ms Tanvi Jha. She is, apart from working in Jharkhand, she is one of is a kind of a common name in the development sector. She has been working in the development sector for almost like 2 decades. She is part of the advocacy program, partnership management, and she has been like one of the things which I would mention. And taking the permission of Tanvi. Tanvi and CINI is a kind of a synonymous. Whenever we are talking about CINI, and the Tanvi name comes in our discussions and all. So she has done extensively excellent and fantastic contributions in the development sector, particularly in the area of adolescent and child rights. Earlier, she was a part of Center for Science and Environment, New Delhi, and that one of the famous magazines, Dawn to Earth. She also contributed writing articles and all in these magazines. Ajay is also very known person in this sector. He has been attached with Pratigya since a long period of time, and particularly the region Bachpan, I have come across, and also quite known to this program in Jharkhand. So Ajay has done uh, has been attached with the organization since 2009 and extensively worked for the development of Jharkhand development sector. He was a part of, he's a convener of Jharkhand Youth Collective, which is a collective of the 12 organizations which is working closely with youth development adolescent in Jharkhand. He has successfully leaded the campaign against the child trafficking free India with Nobel laureate Kailash Satyarthi Children Foundation in 9 districts. He has also worked with one of the famous book called Remapping India. He was a research assistant with Dr. Louis Thielen, and that book is very he was a part of being a research assistant and all. Apart from that, he has been intensively engaged with academic also last 20 years in the academy and contributed a lot for empowering children, youth, and parents from the marginalized section and raised the issue which is really affecting them in Jharkhand. Yeah, uh, I now invite Saira to start this chicken questions.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Sharik. So we have created a brief Menti, like a poll, to kind of understand, the kind of questions or uh, broader expectations that participants or panelists would have from the session. So I'll be sharing the link in the chat. Mhm. Yes. So I hope everybody is able to access the and kind of share any questions, um, broad expectations from the panelists or from the session in general. So would love to have any questions, queries from your end. So I request all the participants, please feel free to kind of uh, give your suggestions or questions in the Menti, please. Yeah. Okay, we have received 3 responses. So there's an expectation to understand more about WCD work that other organizations are doing, as well as to understand whole child development programs in a tribal context. Also to know more about how Prerna Circle kind of works and how it enables this platform for sharing and learning, right? Um, so um, so we have planned this or structured this session in a way which kind of addresses all these questions. Okay, we have another response as well, landscaping of tribal children and development. Yes, so how do we define WCD in respective contexts, as well as to understand different aspects of children's well-being, right? Yes, through different lens that we adopt. Okay, child adversity of in different contexts. Correct. Okay, I believe all these questions would be answered through our session. So I would now request Sharik to initiate the conversation and kind of take us through the first aspect. I would request everybody to please mute yourself, please. Sharik, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much, everyone. Uh, we are formally starting this conversation, and this is very, the Jharkhand context is very important, and it's also very diverse and different kind of intervention by the different level of organization has been doing, and both organization has been working with the communities as a long period of time, and their enriching experience and also learning is quite helpful for all of us to understand about the Jharkhand in the context as well as the challenges they have faced and find the solution and what exactly they have been going ahead and moving ahead in the state based on their learning, their experience, and their observation. So, Tanvi, because you have experience with CINI since a long period of time, your own understanding about that. So, my question is, how do you ensure the program design? Like generally, when we plan to do the some kind of a program design, develop the programs, how it is aligned with the context, how it is going to bring the community into our own program design. How do you ensure that? How to attune with this process? Could you share your experience?
Thank you, Sharik, and thank you, Saira, and thank you to the Sampoorna Consortium for letting us talk about our work and also to give us such a wonderful introduction. I'm sure Ajay also agrees to it. Uh, so going back to Sharik's question, I would like to show a few slides and if possible, I would like to talk in Hindi because I think most of the participants would be more comfortable in Hindi language. Is my screen visible?
Yeah. Tanvi, you can go ahead in Hindi. That's not a question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So your question was that how do we ensure that the program design, when we are working for women and child, whole child development programs, how do we align it to the culture and to the context of the community. So I would like to just summarize this through an ecological framework that has evolved over the 50 years of work that CINI has done in different communities. And we have seen that whenever we go through this ecological framework, it is whether it is a tribal community or it is a non-tribal community, we are able to make a mark through this framework. So very quickly, I will talk about this framework, and then I would delve into how we engage with communities. But right now, how we attune it to the uh, community needs. So wherever we go to work, we keep the child or the woman or the girl at the center, because these are usually our three target groups with whom we work. So they are at the center, and then we work with their parents, with their immediate community, the key influencers. Somebody needs to mute. प्रमोद जी प्लीज आप म्यूट कर लीजिए. Yeah. So we work with the family, the parents, the communities, and with the local government institutions and the service providers. So service providers at the grassroots level, they imply the frontline workers, and we, while working with them, there are these 7 steps that you can see: sensitization, institutionalization, collective analysis, prioritization, planning, implementation, and monitoring. So these are the 7 steps that we always follow whenever we go to work in a community. But I would elaborate on these steps in the next question. Here, I would just elaborate on this framework, that this is how we work in communities and align with their needs. So we identify the needs of the child, the parents, the communities, and the gaps in services. And then we work towards creation of child-friendly systems. So when we talk about child-friendly systems, we implied that whatever institutions are around that child, it can be the Panchayati Raj system, it can be the health system, it can be the Anganwadis. So we work with them and try to uh, capacitate them so that they can function effectively. And in this process of implementation, we gather a lot of information. Sorry, which we use for evidence building, which we use for capacity development, and we use it for providing technical assistance to the relevant government departments. And we also collectivize like-minded organizations and stakeholders to undertake networking, policy influencing, and advocacy. So while this child-friendly system it starts to get created, we also work with the child-friendly organizations. So these organizations can be NGOs, they can be government organizations. So we work with them in such a way that they are able to institutionalize organizational policies and systems which can enable them to work towards becoming child-friendly organizations. So this implies that we work with them so that they are able to develop relevant policies like child safeguarding policies, gender policies. We help them, we capacitate them to conduct advocacy at their own level. So, and also develop digital systems. So we have our own digital monitoring systems. We use open source platform, and we try to translate these learnings to other organizations and government bodies also. So in this process of creation of communities, systems, and organizations which become child friendly, we are able to realize all the entitlements that the UNCRC has given to the children. तो उन entitlements में health, nutrition, education और protection तो आता ही है. उसके साथ साथ जेंडर समता, जेंडर इक्विटी की बात, इसकी लिंकेजेस क्लाइमेट चेंज के साथ उसको भी हम देखते हैं. और हम कोशिश करते हैं कि हम ज्यादा प्रिवेंशन मोड पे काम करें. और दो सिनी का काम रिहैबिलिटेशन में भी है, बट वी ट्राई टू क्रिएट सिस्टम्स विच आर चाइल्ड फ्रेंडली so that prevention can happen and systems are made accountable और कन्वर्जेंस हो डिफरेंट स्टेक होल्डर्स का। और ये कन्वर्जेंस गांव से लेके ऊपर तक हम क्रिएट करने की कोशिश करते हैं। सो राइट नाउ अभी इस सवाल का मैं यही जवाब दूंगी जो शारिक ने पूछा कि हम कैसे उसको उस कम्युनिटी की कल्चर के साथ अलाइन करते हैं। तो हम जैसे ही किसी कम्युनिटी में जाते हैं तो इसी मॉडल के साथ हम चलते हैं और पहले हम समझते हैं कि हम कहाँ आए हैं, इस कम्युनिटी के क्या नॉर्म्स हैं, किस तरह के लोग यहाँ पर रहते हैं, इनके क्या मुद्दे हैं, उसको मैप करके और फिर हम इसी मोड में काम करते हैं। और ये जो स्टेप्स हैं 7 स्टेप्स, इन्हीं से हम बेसिकली इंश्योर करते हैं कि हम कैसे उनको अपना अपने काम को उनके साथ अलाइन कर पाएंगे। और आगे की स्लाइड्स में आई विल एक्सप्लेन ये 7 स्टेप्स कैसे करते हैं, बट फॉर नाउ आई वुड पॉज।
Yeah, thank you very much, Tanvi. It's like going to this ecological uh, framework is making me nostalgic. You know, when I was in CINI, so this was a very like every time we are talking about this and every framework, it designed accordingly for that. But thank you very much for sharing it for the wider audience. Now, Ajay, the same question I'm asking with you because your experience is uh, quite different and you have implemented the program design is also like particularly in the area engaging the children and the women in your program has been quite enriching experience for the organization. Could you share your experience and learning with us about how the program design attuned with the context and community?
Yeah, thank you, Sharik, and thank you, Satwa team, for including me and Pratigya in Prerna Circle, and hope our inputs will help other organizations or other people to think and get aligned in that way. So I would also like to share a few slides on this question. Just give me a second. Yeah. So is it visible?
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, प्रतिज्ञा जो है मतलब जैसे तन्वी ने कहा, बहुत सारी चीजें जो सीनी ने एक फ्रेमवर्क में डाला है और सीनी उसको फॉलो करती है। तो सीनी का एक्सपीरियंस बहुत वास्ट है, बहुत डाइवर्स है। प्रतिज्ञा ने भी कुछ इस तरीके का एक सिस्टम बनाने की कोशिश की है और हमारा जो एक्सपीरियंस रहा है इन पिछले 15 वर्षों में, उसमें हम लोगों ने ये देखा है कि अगर हमें किसी कम्युनिटी में या किसी कल्चर के साथ अगर एटीन्यूएट करना है तो हम लोगों को इन बेसिक चीजों पर पहले काम करने की जरूरत होती है। कि पहले तो वो नीड हम लोग एसेस करते हैं जहाँ पर भी हम किसी काम की शुरुआत करने की सोचते हैं। तो समटाइम्स इट कम्स फ्रॉम द कम्युनिटी बाय, जब शुरू शुरू में हम लोग खुद जाते थे, खुद हम लोग आइडेंटिफाई करते थे, बट नाउ इट इज क्या होता है कि कम्युनिटी से वो डिमांड आता है कि हमारे यहाँ पर ये करना चाहिए। बट स्टिल अगर वो आता भी है तो देन ऑल्सो वी डू दिस प्रोसेस। हम लोग पहले नीड्स को असेस करते हैं, देन बिल्डिंग द रिलेशनशिप्स, लोकल जो इंफॉर्मेशन है, लोकल कल्चर है, उसके बारे में थोड़ा समझते हैं, देन कोशिश करते हैं थोड़ा अडॉप्ट होने का पहले, एंड देन हमारा जो मॉडल होता है उसमें हम कम्युनिटी ओनरशिप पर जो है ज्यादा फोकस्ड होते हैं। तो अगर नीड्स असेसमेंट में देखें तो मुझे लगता है कि सब एग्री करेंगे कि विदाउट नीड असेसमेंट अगर हम कोई प्रोग्राम को लेकर के जाते हैं तो उसके फेल होने के चांसेस ज्यादा होता है। तो नीड बहुत होना जरूरी है क्योंकि हर एक चीज एक दूसरे के साथ लिंक्ड अप होता है। तो नीड है तो रिलेशनशिप बिल्ड होगा, तो ओनरशिप आएगा, इस तरीके से। तो जब हम नीड असेस करते हैं तो हमें एग्जैक्टली पता चलता है कि अच्छा हमें कहाँ पर इंटरवेंशन करना है। बिकॉज अगर हम किसी कम्युनिटी में जाते हैं और चीजों को करने के लिए हम सारे फैसिलिटीज सोचते हैं कि वहां जाकर के दे देंगे, देन वो सस्टेन नहीं करता है बहुत समय। तो इट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कि हमें एग्जैक्ट नीड पता होना चाहिए, और जिसके लिए अलग अलग टूल्स हैं। हम लोग इंटरव्यूज करते हैं, सर्वे करते हैं और फोकस ग्रुप डिस्कशन करते हैं, तो इस तरीके से हम लोगों का असेसमेंट होता है। फिर हम लोग जो पहली प्रक्रिया होती है वो बिल्डिंग द रिलेशनशिप्स विद द पीपल लिविंग देयर। वहां पर लोगों के साथ थोड़ा समय बिताना, उनके अपने मीटिंग्स में, उनके अपने चर्चा में थोड़ा सा समय निकाल करके अपना टाइम देना, उनके पर्सपेक्टिव को भी सुनना। लेट अस सपोज कि जैसे अगर प्रतिज्ञा का एग्जांपल लें तो वो ज्यादातर लाइफ स्किल्स और एजुकेशन पर काम करती है। तो अगर हम एजुकेशन को लेकर के हम वहाँ इंटरव्यू करना भी चाहते हैं, तो लेट्स पहले हम लोग पहले सुनते हैं कि वो क्या सोचते हैं इसके बारे में, और उनका क्या एक्सपीरियंस रहा है। क्या वो वैसा ही सोच पा रहे हैं जिस तरीके से हम उनके बच्चों के लिए सोच रहे हैं। तो देन एक वो अलाइनमेंट होता हुआ जब नजर आता है तो हम फिर आगे बढ़ते हैं। इसके बाद जो लोकल नॉलेज है, लोकल नॉलेज इन द सेंस कि वहाँ पर भाषा, कल्चर, ये सारी चीजों के बारे में थोड़ा सा जरूरी है समझना चीजों को, क्योंकि एट वंस हम अगर कहीं पे कोई प्रोग्राम शुरू करें और हमको पता ही नहीं है कि उसका कॉन्टेक्स्ट क्या है, वहाँ पर कल्चर क्या फॉलो होते हैं, वहाँ पर लोग किस तरीके से बात करते हैं, किस भाषा में बात करते हैं, कैसे कम्युनिकेट करते हैं, एक दूसरे से उनका कम्युनिकेशन किस तरीके से होता है। तो ये सारी चीजें जब हम समझते हैं, देन ओनली जो है हम हमारे प्रोग्राम को जो है सस्टेन करने में या उसको इनिशिएट करने में वो ज्यादा बेहतर समय होता है। इसके बाद अगर देखें एडेप्टेशन, तो उनके जब कल्चर को, उनके लैंग्वेज प्रैक्टिसेस को जब हम समझ गए तो थोड़ा बहुत हमें एडप्ट करना होता है। मतलब एडप्ट करने का इन द सेंस कि हमारे जो स्टाफ हैं, हमारे जो लोग हैं, उनको उसके बारे में थोड़ा सा कैपेसिटी बिल्ड करना है, प्रेज करना कि इस कम्युनिटी में जो है इस तरीके के प्रैक्टिसेस चलते हैं, तो आप जो है दूसरे कम्युनिटी के प्रैक्टिसेस को यहाँ पर जो है जाकर के इम्पोज ना करें। Let's understand their context, the community, the practices, their cultural norms, and then only जो है वो प्रोग्राम वाइज जो है एडेप्टेशन शुरू होता है। इसके बाद जो प्रक्रिया होती है वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, कम्युनिटी की ओनरशिप की बात। क्योंकि विदाउट कम्युनिटी ओनरशिप अगर हम किसी कम्युनिटी में बहुत समय तक काम करना चाहेंगे या कोई भी काम करना चाहेंगे तो वो सक्सेसफुल नहीं होगा। तो हमें वहाँ के कम्युनिटी मेंबर्स, लीडर्स, जो भी ग्रुप्स हैं, वहाँ के लोकल ग्रुप्स होंगे, महिलाओं के ग्रुप्स होंगे, इनके साथ यूथ ग्रुप्स होंगे, इनके साथ जो है हमें समय बिताना होता है, इनके साथ हमें बात करनी होती है। एंड देन एक प्रोग्राम का पूरा ढांचा तैयार होता है जिसमें हम उनको भी उस प्रोसेस में लेकर के आते हैं, उनको भी डिसीजन मेकिंग प्रोसेस में लेकर के आते हैं कि आपका सुझाव, आपका एक्सपीरियंस हमें इस प्रोग्राम को बेहतर तरीके से डिजाइन करने में मदद करे। तो जब वो उस रोल पर आते हैं तो देन कम्युनिटी स्टार्ट टू ओन दैट प्रोग्राम। तो प्रतिज्ञा में ये हुआ है कि हम बहुत सारा प्रोग्राम जो है ऐसे ही हमने शुरू किया, बट व्हेन कम्युनिटी ने उसे ओन करना शुरू किया तो वो प्रोग्राम और स्ट्रांग होता चला गया। तो एक ऐसा समय भी आया जब हमारा बहुत इंटरवेंशन की वहां जरूरत नहीं होती, लोग वहां पर खुद ब खुद जो है उसको एज अ डेली रूटीन या फिर उनका जो जो भी प्रक्रिया है वो एक रूटीन वाइज तरीके से फिक्स हो जाता है। तो दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कि कम्युनिटी ओनरशिप का होना बहुत जरूरी होता है किसी भी प्रोग्राम में। तो हम लोगों का एक सॉल्यूशन जो है, हम लोग
Ajay, just I'm going to interrupt because this how many slides you have? Because we have
जस्ट दिस
short
इज
of
द
time.
लास्ट, दिस इज
अच्छा,
द
this is
लास्ट
the
स्लाइड
last.
फॉर
Okay,
दिस।
okay, okay, okay. Thank you.
तो हमने जो अपना एक सॉल्यूशन एजुकेशन को लेकर के तैयार किया है वो ये 4 ई को लेकर के है। यहाँ पर हम इंश्योर करने की बात करते हैं, एनेबल करने की बात करते हैं, इक्विप करने की और एम्पावर करने की। तो अगर हम बच्चों की केस ले लें तो उनका एक्सेस दिलाने में पहले हम जोर डालते हैं, देन हम उनको रिटेन करने में उसमें काम करते हैं कि वो सिर्फ स्कूल तक पहुंचे नहीं बल्कि वहां पे वो परफॉर्म भी करें और रिटेन भी करें। और इसके अलावा जब स्कूल के बाहर का जो सपोर्ट होता है उसके साथ हम इक्विप करते हैं एंड देन एम्पावरिंग द यूथ कि आप भी उस कम्युनिटी के लिए एक चेंज मेकर की तरह काम करें। तो ये एक छोटा सा मॉडल हमारा 4E थ्योरी ऑफ 4E सॉल्यूशन। दैट्स ऑल फ्रॉम दिस।
So thank you very much, Ajay. Like this is really helpful for all of us to understand about the approaches and the program design based on the different experience by the different organization. So my next question about uh, community ownership, how the community engagement is ensured, how do we engage community to play an active role and contribute in the program design and implementation and intervention. Tanvi, I would like to understand it from you because you have been like a CINI has been working in almost all the district in Jharkhand, and Jharkhand is divided into five administrative zone, and each zone is very different to each other, language-wise, culture-wise, community-wise. So, so you can share your experience, the CINI experience with us, how the community engagement is a critical part for making the program design implemented successfully.
Sure, Sharik. I'll just quickly share one slide. जैसा कि अभी मैं बता रही थी, just put it on full screen. ये जो सर्कल में 7 बिल्डिंग ब्लॉक्स मैं दिखा रही थी, उसके बारे में थोड़ा बात करना चाहूंगी, बिकॉज यही वो तरीका है जिससे कि हम कम्युनिटी ओनरशिप इंश्योर करते हैं। इसको थोड़ा ट्वीक करते हैं अलग अलग कॉन्टेक्स्ट में, क्योंकि हम लोगों ने देखा है कि जिस भी जोन में, जिस भी कम्युनिटीज में इस तरह से हम जाते हैं तो रिजल्ट्स हमको मिलता है और सस्टेनेबिलिटी भी मिलती है। और कहीं ना कहीं थोड़ा ये अलाइंड है, जो अभी अजय ने भी शेयर किया, कुछ उसी तरह की चीजें इसमें भी आती हैं। तो सबसे पहले तो हम जिस भी समुदाय में जाते हैं वहां पर पार्टिसिपेटरी टूल्स यूज करके जितने भी जो ड्यूटी बेरर्स हैं या जो स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं, जो की इन्फ्लुएंसर्स हैं, स्पेशली अगर हम ट्राइबल कम्युनिटीज में जाते हैं तो वहां पर जो जो लोग ग्राम सभा के मेंबर्स होते हैं, उन लोगों के साथ हम बातचीत करते हैं, उनको सेंसिटाइज करते हैं कि क्यों जरूरत है बच्चों के साथ काम करने की, क्या मुद्दे हैं, उस पर बातचीत करते हैं। और इसमें कभी कभी गवर्नमेंट का डेटा भी यूज करते हैं जो उस एरिया के लिए अवेलेबल हो। और उसके बाद हम इन चीजों के ऊपर जैसे जितने भी गवर्नमेंट इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं उनकी बात करते हैं, उनको एक्टिवेट करने की बात करते हैं, जिसको हम इंस्टीट्यूशनलाइजेशन कहते हैं। जैसे कि अगर हम RKS के प्रोग्राम की बात करें, राष्ट्रीय किशोर स्वास्थ्य कार्यक्रम, तो उसमें पेयर एजुकेटर्स की बात कही गई है। तो हम उसकी बात करते हैं कि आपके गांव में कौन है पेयर एजुकेटर्स, क्या आप जानते हैं? आपके गांव में वुमेन कलेक्टिव जो है, सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप महिलाओं का, क्या उसके बारे में आप जानते हैं? क्या वो एक्टिवेटेड है? क्या विलेज लेवल चाइल्ड प्रोटेक्शन कमिटी है? अगर नहीं है तो क्या आप चाहेंगे कि वो आपके गांव में एक्टिवेट हो? उनके रोल्स उनको बताते हैं, एडोलेसेंट ग्रुप्स के बारे में बताते हैं। तो ये सब जब चर्चाएं होती हैं तो एक मोमेंटम बिल्ड होता है, उनको लगता है कि हाँ बच्चों के लिए काम करने की जरूरत है। तो हम कलेक्टिवली फिर उनके साथ बैठते हैं और एनालाइज करते हैं कि बच्चों की स्थिति क्या है। इसके लिए टूल्स जैसे सोशल मैपिंग है, PRI एक्सरसाइज है, ये सब यूज करते हैं। और ये जो सोशल मैप है ये हमेशा उसी गांव में रिटेन रहता है, या तो आंगनवाड़ी सेंटर में या फिर समुदाय भवन में, वहां उसको लगाते हैं ताकि लोग देख सके और चर्चा कर सके। और यूजली हम अडोलेसेंट्स और यूथ को एम्पावर करते हैं। वी हैव आवर ओन मॉड्यूल्स जिसके बारे में आगे बात करेंगे, ताकि इन सोशल मैप्स को वो समझ सके, खुद से उस पर बातचीत कर सके और अपने कम्युनिटी में भी इस पे चर्चा कर सके। फिर हमने देखा है कि जब भी ये एक्सरसाइज होता है मैपिंग का, तो बहुत सारे मुद्दे निकल के आते हैं और हर मुद्दा आपस में जुड़ा हुआ रहता है। तो हम कोशिश करते हैं कि कुछ ऐसे मुद्दों को कम्युनिटी के द्वारा बैठ के प्रायोरिटाइज कराएं, जिनके ऊपर काम करके हमें लगता है कि बाकी मुद्दों पे भी एक सिस्टमिक मैनर पे इम्पैक्ट हो पाएगा। तो जैसे कि मान लीजिए कि एजुकेशन ड्रॉप आउट के ऊपर काम कर रहे हैं, तो अगर आप देखेंगे ड्रॉप आउट बच्चे बहुत सारी वजहों से वो स्कूल नहीं जाते हैं। तो उन वजहों पे अगर आप काम करते हैं तो बहुत सारे मुद्दे ऐसे ही एड्रेस हो जाते हैं। फिर हम कोशिश करते हैं कि एक प्लान ऑफ एक्शन बने, समुदाय खुद से ही प्रायोरिटाइज करे कि उनको क्या करना है, और उस वो प्लानिंग वो खुद से बनाए और वो प्लान उनके पास रहे कि वो क्या करना है उसमें। और कहीं ना कहीं हमारे जो कम्युनिटी वॉलेंटियर्स हैं वो इस पूरे प्रोसेस में हैंड होल्डिंग भी करते हैं। और जैसे प्राय सभी संस्थाएं करती हैं, वो कम्युनिटी वॉलेंटियर्स उसी एरिया के होते हैं, उसी भाषा में बात करते हैं, उसी कल्चर को बिलोंग करते हैं। तो ये करने के बाद उस एक्शन प्लान को इम्प्लीमेंट किया जाता है, जो हमारा 6th स्टेप है, और उसको फिर मॉनिटर किया जाता है। और ये मॉनिटरिंग समुदाय के द्वारा ही की जाती है। तो अलग अलग मुद्दों पे, जैसे मान लीजिए हमें किसी डोनर ने प्रोजेक्ट दिया है केवल चाइल्ड प्रोटेक्शन के ऊपर काम करने के लिए, तो वो जो विलेज लेवल चाइल्ड प्रोटेक्शन कमेटी का जो प्लेटफॉर्म है जो अभी तक यूज हो रहा है, उनके थ्रू ये मॉनिटरिंग करते हैं। जो भी टूल्स बनी हुई हैं उनके लिए, उनके पास ट्रैकिंग रजिस्टर्स होते हैं, उन सारे टूल्स को वो यूज करते हैं समुदाय में। और उस डेटा को हम अपने पास भी लेके आते हैं, और हमारा जो डिजिटल सिस्टम है उसके थ्रू हम जनरेट करते हैं फैक्ट शीट्स। वो फैक्ट शीट्स जो इजीली कम्युनिटी अंडरस्टैंड कर सके, और उसको हम वापस ले जाते हैं समुदाय के पास और प्रेजेंट करते हैं कि ये देखिए, पहले ये स्थिति थी, अभी ये बदलाव हुआ है, अभी और यहाँ काम करना है। तो वो आंकड़े जब वो देखते हैं तब वो समझ पाते हैं कि हम कहाँ हैं और हमको क्या करना है। इस सवाल के लिए शारिक इतना ही।
नहीं नहीं, थैंक यू वेरी मच। आपने बहुत डिटेल में बताया, स्पेशली कि जो कम्युनिटी के साथ हमारा इंगेजमेंट होता है। जैसी बात अजय ने भी कही थी, नीड असेसमेंट उसके बाद करते हैं। और जो मैपिंग की बात, इंस्टीट्यूशनलाइजेशन की बात, दो आर वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट लर्निंग फॉर ऑल ऑफ अस। Ajay, could you share your experience, Pratigya experience, especially in the community engagement in the decision making? Because I have gone through, I have had a discussions with many people in Pratigya and got to know like a very insightful thing is happening in particular in the in engaging the community in the decision making. Please share those things with us, and it will be really helpful for us.
हाँ। सो बेसिकली मुझे लगता है कि तन्वी ने भी लगभग मेजरली ये कह दिया है। सो वी फॉलो सिमिलर प्रोसेस जहाँ डिसीजन मेकिंग की बात आती है। सो पार्टिसिपेशन, यूटिलाइजेशन ऑफ प्रोग्राम, कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग एंड इंसेंटिव्स एंड रिकॉग्निशन। तो मैं थोड़ा सा लास्ट वाला बता देना चाहता हूँ क्योंकि ये तीनों ने तन्वी ने बहुत डिटेल तरीके से बताया है। इंसेंटिव्स और रिकॉग्निशन जो है ये भी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट होता है जब हम कम्युनिटी ओनरशिप की बात करते हैं। इंसेंटिव्स जो है वो हमेशा फिनेंशियल ही होगा ऐसा नहीं, बट नॉन फिनेंशियल इंसेंटिव्स और उनका रिकॉग्निशन बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट होता है। सो हम जब भी कहीं कम्युनिटी में प्रतिज्ञा इंटरवीन करती है तो हम एक चीज का ध्यान रखते हैं कि एक तो वहां से जो भी व्यक्ति हमारे साथ जुड़ रहे हैं उनका कैपेसिटी बिल्ड हो, और समय समय पर जो है उनको अलग अलग प्लेटफॉर्म्स में जहां पर भी पॉसिबिलिटी होता है उनको वहां पर रिप्रेजेंट करने का मौका मिले। तो इससे क्या होता है कि जब एक व्यक्ति को अपने कम्युनिटी से जब एक व्यक्ति को लोग देखते हैं कि अच्छा ये इस संस्था के इस कार्यक्रम से जुड़ करके यहाँ तक पहुंच रहा है, इनको अलग अलग जगह पर जाने का मौका मिल रहा है, तो देन अ सेंस ऑफ मतलब एक सेंसिटाइजेशन भी होता है और साथ ही साथ एक एनर्जी बिल्डअप होता है। तो लोग जो है और ऑर्गेनाइज तरीके से जो है हिस्सा लेने। तो एक तो ये चीज है, और दूसरा ये है कि जब डिसीजन मेकिंग प्रोसेस की बात आती है तो हम लोग चूंकि ज्यादातर हम बच्चों के साथ काम करते हैं, तो हम लोग बच्चों के मॉड्यूल्स जो हमारे यहाँ चलते हैं, चाहे वो लाइफ स्किल्स के हो, चाहे वो स्पोर्ट्स एजुकेशन का हो, या कहीं पर भी, सो वी एक्चुअली हेल्प देम टू बिकम अ लीडर फॉर देयर ओन, जो उनका जो समूह है जो कोऑपरेटिव है उसमें। तो वो लीडिंग पोस्ट होता है जहां पर हम पीछे से उनको सिर्फ हम लोग ट्रेन करते हैं, उनको उनका कैपेसिटी बिल्ड करते हैं, लेकिन एज फ्रंट से जो है वो बच्चे खुद लीड करते हैं और खुद से डिजाइन करना, खुद से वहां पर डिसीजन लेना, ये सारी चीजें करते हैं। मैं अगर एक छोटा सा एग्जांपल लूं, कि जब कोविड का समय था और जब बहुत एक्सटेंसिव जब लॉकडाउन चल रहा था शुरुआती दौर, तो मूवमेंट सभी लोगों के रुक गए थे। तो हम लोग यहाँ पर जहाँ काम करते हैं जगन्नाथपुर में, इट्स यू कैन से द बिगेस्ट स्लम ऑफ झारखंड। तो यहाँ पर बच्चों ने मिलकर के क्या डिसाइड किया कि वो लोग अपने अपने गलियों में वो दो दो लोगों को नॉमिनेट किया उन्होंने, और उन्होंने रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी दी कि आपका काम है हर एक दिन या हर 2 दिन में एक बार उस गली के जितने सारे घर हैं उसमें फोन करो। और उन्होंने एकदम, मैंने एक बच्चा जिस तरीके से सवाल बनाता है उन्होंने बनाया सवाल कि आपके घर में जो बच्चा, कितने बच्चे हैं, किस क्लास में हैं, पढ़ाई हो रही है, रुक गई है, खाना मिल रहा है कि नहीं, तबीयत ठीक है कि नहीं। इस तरीके से उन्होंने 7-8 सवाल जो है रोज वो लोग या हर 2 दिन में एक बार फोन करके पूछते थे। लेकिन शायद उन्होंने विजन नहीं किया था कि वो इस सवाल से कितने सारे समस्याओं को सुलझा रहे हैं। बट हमने जब ये चीज जाना और हम जब ये चीज हमें जब पता चला तो हमें लगा कि ये कितना अच्छा आइडिया था, जहां पर ये छोटे से सवाल जवाब से ये इंश्योर हो जाता था कि अच्छा इस घर में खाना नहीं पहुंचा है तो खाना पहुंचाना है, इस घर में जो है बच्ची सेफ है, उसका बाल विवाह नहीं हुआ है, इस जगह से बाल तस्करी नहीं हुआ है, पढ़ाई का स्थिति क्या है। तो ये हम लोगों को मदद किया। और मतलब मुझे लगता है कि इस तरह का आइडियाज जो है बच्चे तभी ले पाए जब उनको हम लोगों ने एक डिसीजन मेकिंग प्रोसेस में हमने लाने की कोशिश की। तो इस तरीके से हम महिलाओं के साथ भी करते हैं, पुरुषों के साथ भी करते हैं। तो दिस इज अ वे जहां पर हम डिसीजन मेकिंग प्रोसेस में उनको एक्टिवली इंगेज करने का काम। या थैंक्स।
या थैंक यू वेरी मच अजय। थोड़ा सा और अगर इंसेंटिवाइजेशन और रिकॉग्निशन, बिकॉज दैट्स वेरी इम्पोर्टेंट, क्योंकि कम्युनिटी के साथ जब आपने ये इंटरवेंशन आपने बताया रिकॉग्निशन का, तो और क्या चीजें, क्या मतलब कि टाइप का, जब शुरुआत आप करते हैं इसको, तो किस तरह की चीजों को प्रोसेस में लाते हैं? क्योंकि जैसे ही हम इंसेंटिव बोलते हैं तो एक होता है कि कैश रिलेटेड या मनी रिलेटेड इंसेंटिव, तो उसमें कुछ आपकी चीज, कुछ आपकी लर्निंग है तो वो अपने शेयर करें।
नो डाउट आप सही कह रहे हैं शारिक, कि जब भी हम इंसेंटिव की बात करते हैं तो इवन उनके दिमाग में नहीं, हमारे दिमाग में भी अगर कहीं पर हम काम करते हैं तो इंसेंटिव बोलने से ही पहले फिनेंशियल चीजें आती हैं। ये नेचुरल भी है, इसमें कोई गलत बात नहीं है। जिस तरीके से हम बड़े हुए हैं या सीखे हैं चीजों को, वो वैसे ही है। तो प्रतिज्ञा का एक फायदा, मतलब फायदा नहीं कहूंगा, तो प्रतिज्ञा ने आज तक जहां भी इंटरव्यू किया है, हमने हमेशा पहले दिन से ये अपने वैल्यू सिस्टम में डाला था कि हम इंसेंटिव्स जो है बहुत फिनेंशियल नहीं रखेंगे। क्योंकि हमारा मकसद ये था कि हम जहां इंटरव्यू करें वहां से हम कभी ना कभी निकलेंगे। तो इट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कि इंसेंटिव्स नॉन फिनेंशियल हो सके जितनी दूर तक, ताकि वो सस्टेनेबल मोड में जा सके। तो हमारे यहाँ अगर हम इंसेंटिव्स देखें तो हम बच्चों को, अगर आप देखेंगे तो वो लीडरशिप पोजीशन, वो रिकॉग्निशन, और उनको अलग अलग प्लेटफॉर्म्स में हम लोग लेकर के जाना। जैसे हमारे यहाँ से जो बच्चे हमारे साथ जुड़े थे, आज वो ग्रेजुएशन जब कंप्लीट कर लिया है, तो आज वो संस्था के प्रोग्राम को लीड कर रहे हैं। दे हैव बिकम द चेंज मेकर फॉर देयर ओन कम्युनिटी। तो ये और ये सिर्फ वो कर रहे हैं बोल के छोड़ नहीं दिया है, उनका स्टोरी हम अलग अलग जगह पर लेकर के जा रहे हैं, तो विच एक्ट्स एज एन इंसेंटिव फॉर दैट। उसी तरीके से अगर हम महिलाओं का देखें, अभी अगर हमारे यहाँ एक मातृशक्ति फुटबॉल टूर्नामेंट जो काफी प्रचलित हुई है, तो यहाँ पर भी उनको इंसेंटिव में हमने वो सेंसिटाइजेशन प्रोसेस में हम लेकर के गए कि आप सिर्फ फुटबॉल मैच नहीं खेल रहे हैं, बल्कि इसका जो डिजाइन है जहां पर आप एक मुद्दे को लेकर के आ रहे हैं, उस मुद्दे के लिए आकर आप एक लीडर की तरह खड़ी हुई। तो अभी माताएं ये कहती हैं कि अच्छा हमको आपने वो मौका दिया कि हम घर से बाहर मैदान तक जाए, तो ये उनके लिए एक इंसेंटिव है। मतलब हम नहीं सोच सकते हैं, बट ये उनके लिए एक इंसेंटिव है कि वो मैदान में आज खेल रही हैं और उनके घर से कोई जो है बाधा नहीं डाल। तो इस तरीके के अलग अलग प्रोग्राम्स में हम लोगों ने बहुत सारे इस तरह के नॉन फिनेंशियल इंसेंटिव्स हमने डाला है, जिसके कारण शायद हम लोगों को वो ओनरशिप वहां पर मिलने में ना हो।
Yeah, I completely agree because मातृशक्ति वाली जो बात आप कर रहे हो, that really my inspiration and motivation to understand about that program when I heard about that. But आपने बहुत ही अच्छी बात कही, आप और तन्वी ने भी। तो मैं इसको जस्ट एक समराइज करता हूँ इस पूरे डिस्कशन को, कि जो हमारे जब भी हम कोई प्रोग्राम डिजाइन की बात करते हैं तो हमारा एक फ्रेमवर्क होता है हर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का, जिसके बेसिस पे हम उन चीजों को देखते हैं। जैसा सिनी का अपना एक इकोलॉजिकल कोर है, जिसमें वो 7 स्टेप को फॉलो करते हैं। आपके यहाँ जो है 4 ईज के लेवल पे चीजों को देखते हैं। सेम चीज कनेक्टेड विद कम्युनिटी मोबिलाइजेशन पे भी मेरे को नजर आया। जो बात तन्वी ने कही कि हम इंस्टीट्यूशनलाइजेशन प्रोसेस में उसको कनेक्ट करते हैं, कि ग्राम सभा से शुरू करते हैं, उनके मेंबर्स के साथ काम करते हैं, जो सबसे लोवेस्ट फॉर्म ऑफ डिसीजन मेकिंग है हमारे डेमोक्रेटिक प्रोसेस में, और फिर कम्युनिटी का एंगेजमेंट इंश्योर करते हैं। सेम थिंग प्रतिज्ञा के साथ भी, ठीक है, नीड असेसमेंट, और उसके बाद एक पूरे के पूरे प्रोसेस को हम देखने के बाद आगे बढ़ते हैं। दोनों में जो बहुत सारी चीजें कॉमन है, लेकिन बहुत ही डिस्टिंक्ट लर्निंग है आप दोनों ऑर्गेनाइजेशन की। तो इस प्रोसेस, इस पार्ट को मैं थोड़ा ओपन करना चाहता हूँ अपने जो लोग हमें सुन रहे हैं या हमारे साथ हैं, उनके कुछ सवाल होंगे। तो वो अगर अपने सवाल पूछना चाहते हैं तो प्लीज अनम्यूट और open your camera and ask from Ajay and Tanvi, and then we can move ahead for the further discussion.
I had a question, but I would also request everybody if you could paste your questions in chat also, we can go through that. But it was just a general question, and Mr. Ajay, Ms Tanvi, anybody can take this up. So I was thinking, once we are starting a program with this much participation from the communities and with communities' inputs, we would be able to see that throughout the program, right? Their trust and kind of their inputs throughout the program. So, have you had any experiences like that, or would you like to add anything to this particular experience that were you able to witness like inputs as we go on in the programs as well, and kind of their interest to contribute ideas or suggestions, anything like that? And would love to hear it in a little bit of English and Hindi as well.
No.
Ajay, should I go first?
Yes, please.
Okay. So, from what I gathered from your question, Saira, you would want to understand any examples of how community participated and engaged. So, there is one example because of which we were able to sustain one of our project activities. So there is a project which is going to close soon, and we are implementing it in a tribal area in Dumka. It is the Santhal Pargana belt. So there, during COVID times, we had started implementing COVID Sahayata Kendra. And these COVID Sahayata Kendra, they acted as a safe space where children could go and study, where immunization services, ration, everything, all the services that were required during COVID times, that linkages were happening. So after some time, when this pandemic was over, still the Gram Sabha said that you can continue these centers. We need them, and we continued. Our educators were also there. And after some time, when the donor said that now it's time to close down and all the workers now need to be withdrawn, so there was a group called Community Sahayata Group that was created during this period, who were like a panel of advisors for this COVID Sahayata Kendra, and they were from the community, just voluntary group. So what they did, these community Sahayata group members, some of them were also members of the Panchayati Raj system. Some of them were Mukhyas. So when the Gram Panchayat development planning process was happening, which we call GPDP, In that process, they integrated these centers. They budgeted a very minimal amount for maintenance of these centers. And so we have this in the register signed by these members, the Gram Sabha members, that now these centers will be run by. So in all 23 panchayats, these have been institutionalized and they will run even after the project closes. But yes, I would also add that we have had a lot of backlash also on certain areas. And so on one side, we have community participation, engagement, but at times we also get backlash, which is addressed through, again, adolescent participation, youth participation. Ajay can add on.
Uh, I also have a similar story. Means in one of our work area in Kupi Kala block. So when we started our Srijan Bachpan program there, so we need space to conduct sessions and like that. So what happened? We didn't have any space, so we used the corridor of the government school, primary school, which is located there. But it was not covered from all the sides. So during the rainy season and winter season, the attendance actually became low. So we just asked the Gram Sabha that this is the case and we need one room. So if there is any room here which can be rented out, so we can just hire, means we can just use that room and we will pay the rent. Then they said, sir, this is a village and we don't have any extra room means to give it on rent. So they decided in their Gram Sabha that they will build a room for the children. And they build a room for the children there, and which is still there, and all the programs and activities are being conducted there. So it's a mud house type of room, so where 70 to 80 children can sit together and they can conduct a session or they can involve in the different activities. So recently, what happened? When this room was built, so we also suggested the Gram Sabha that this, since Pratigya sessions are being conducted only 2 or 3 days in a week, so why the room should be closed for other days? It should be open for the children for other days also. So they mutually decided that the children will come in the evening here and they will do combined study type of thing, and which actually helped them in improving their results. So recently, what happened? Means the usage of room was going low, and we were thinking that means the programs will not be conducted here anymore. So we again approached to Gram Sabha and we just presented the situation here that the room was built for the children and now the attendance is going low. So is it like there is no need of this room? So the programs can be closed here and like that. So then they again have a decision and discussion on it. They they themselves visited the center, they themselves talked with the children, why the attendance is going low, and like that. And now, after their intervention, the room is again, you can say it's going live. So children are gathering there, they are conducting different type of activities. Like that means the association and the intervention of the decision makers are very important.
So one common thing I think I'm hearing is that when we involve the community itself, there is more chance and that element of sustainability being there. So the community feels it's their own thing and kind of build that sustainability aspect as well. So thank you, Stanvi and Strajay, for sharing that. Um, Maybe we can also see if there are any other questions from the participants on what Ms. Tanvi and Strajay had shared, and then move on to the next part. Okay, then I think I'll go ahead with the second aspect that under the larger theme that we were interested to explore and understand. So, so in this section, what we really wanted to explore was to understand what are some of the specific challenges that kind of come up when we are engaging marginalized communities in whole child development programs, right? So, what are some of the specific challenges um, which come up? And also, how do both of your organizations think of, um, designing solutions or mitigation measures for these risks? Because even when challenges come up, what kind of ways do we adopt to kind of design these solutions or mitigation measures was something we were interested to understand. Um, yeah, so again, a small request for a mix of Hindi and English, but please go ahead. Yeah.
So should I?
Ms. Tanvi.
Okay. I'll quickly share a slide. So on the question of the challenges faced, so what happens usually is that whenever we go to work in any community, it can be a tribal community or any other community, the systems are very rigid and they have their own traditions and social norms. So it is very difficult to break through these norms. And so right now I will only talk about the challenges, and in the forthcoming slides, I will talk about some of the solutions. So these norms can be around anything. It can be around child marriage. It can be around, living in. It can be around migrating for work. So different norms in different communities. So in the tribal communities, we see that there is a little openness. There are traditional systems where children, when they get into puberty, they are able to mingle with the opposite sex, and they can also live in. But then these systems somewhere, they are not empowering them in the kind of way that agency building needs to happen. And the right information is also not there with them, especially with the girls. So there is a lot of teenage pregnancy, a lot of infringement of their rights. They are not able to decide what is right or wrong for them. Besides that, mute हो जाइए सौरभ जी. Besides that, there are poor care mechanisms at the family level. So while we were doing interventions with making schools as platforms, and also while we were working at the community level, we found that in both kinds of communities, but especially in the remote tribal communities, we saw that the care mechanisms were poor at the family level. The communication between the parents and the children was very poor, and children were not seen as someone that the parent has to take care of. Somewhere there was a dynamics that the child also needs to fend for the family when it grows up. Besides that, there is a lot of power dynamics. Especially, we saw this in the non-tribal communities. There are some communities where we actually had figures where we saw that more than 80% of the marriages that were happening, the early marriages, the key decision makers were the fathers. So it is usually the fathers or the brothers who are taking decisions, and it is very difficult to break through these systems. Then there are also very primitive, vulnerable groups we call PVTGs. So they have very rigidness. They are very rigid to access health services. They do not want to go for routine immunization. They actually don't allow government service providers to enter into their village, and they are also living in very remote areas. We have these Pahadia tribes in the Santhal belt, so they come down only to get basic groceries, and otherwise they live on the hilltops. So that kind of community is there. And so services are also not accessible and uptake is also poor. Then the priority is to fend for the daily needs. They need their bread and butter for the day. So these priorities define their needs, and this is how they work through their lives. And if you see it in a more different way, while we are working with the adolescents, the youth groups, we are seeing that uh, for them it is important to have an Android phone if they can get a smartphone from somewhere. So that is a priority for them. But going to school every day is not a priority for them. So, how do we work on these perspectives? And it is actually linked to all the other challenges because there is a very poor parental communication. The teachers are not guiding them in the way. When they are going to school, they are not getting quality education. So, slowly their priorities have shifted. And even the parents are telling them that they need to go out and earn for them. Parents are alcoholic. They are not seeing that they are the persons who are responsible for the child. So, and also when the community tells us that, okay, now you have told us that these are the problems that we are faced with, this is the data that you keep showing us. So, what will you do for us? What is the answer that you have? So, the only answer that we have is government schemes. There is nothing else that an NGO can give to a community. So we try to link them to government schemes. We make them aware that these are the schemes that are available. So the first biggest challenge is that they don't even have the basic identity cards. They don't have the BPL cards. So they look up to the NGO that you please get these documents for us. So once these documents are ready, then when they go to seek that particular scheme, there is so much of corruption, there is so much of misbehavior, and they have to travel long distances. So all these acts as barriers, and they don't, then they prefer not to access government schemes. So these are some of the big challenges that we are faced with.
Got it. Thank you, Ms. Tanvi. And I would now request Mr. Ajay also to share his thoughts on this particular question, and then we can open up uh, space for questions and any insights as well.
Yeah, thank you. I think Tanvi has already described it in a very detailed manner, but still, I will just show a slide, means one or two slides regarding the challenges. Uh, so basically, I tried to categorize the challenges, and I have categorized in this way. We found whenever we try to intervene in any community in the first time, so we found these type of challenges, generally resistance to change, language and cultural barriers, limited access to resources, and discrimination. So resistance to change can be again bifurcated in like marginalized communities may be resistant to change because of their past experiences, where one organization had tried to intervene in some way and they didn't get success. So their belief system get hurt, and it's hard to make a rapport with them regarding our intervention. Then cultural beliefs and practices are also creating resistance to change, and lack of understanding or having a proper idea about the program can also lead a resistance, but it's in a later phase, not in the initial phase. Language and cultural barriers, we are all known to this. If so, that is the reason we used to have a local person or a local community mobilizer from that community, so that the process can get easier to make a rapport and to also to intervene in a better way. So, because at times what happens, there may arise misunderstandings and miscommunications due to this barrier. If we don't have a proper person who can convey our message to them or convey the message back from them, so this can lead misunderstandings between the organization and the person or the community. Access to resources, Tanvi has already described, like these are some resources which generally the marginalized communities lack of: education, related to education, healthcare, sanitation, or livelihood opportunities. And discrimination, if we see in marginalized communities, there are discrimination in three major categories. There may be discrimination in other categories also, but these are some of the these are some of the categories which generally create barriers to our intervention, or it acts as a challenge to our intervention, like caste or religion based, gender based, or social status based discrimination. So these are the key challenges which generally we do face while intervening in the marginalized communities, whether it is in urban slums or in tribal communities, in means in the village area or something like that. So these are the challenges I means I have tried to put it in slides actually.
Thank you, Mr. Ajay. Before moving on to kind of sharing what are the ways in which we think about building up solutions or mitigation measures, I had a question, but I think it will probably get answered while you are sharing about the solutions. But what I was thinking was when Ms. Tanvi had shared the kind of challenges that was going, shared over the slides. So some of them are, pre-existing, has always been there, right? The cultural norm, rigidity, what you had also shared, Mr. Ajay, resistance to change, right? But some of them, like, say, for example, adolescents needing phones more than maybe understanding the importance of going every day to schools, right? So these are two different kind of challenges that we may be seeing. And Stanley, you had mentioned that government schemes, we point them to the government programs as a solution also. But what I was thinking was also, a larger element of behavioral change is what we are looking for, right? To kind of break through these barriers which have always been there, and to understand that, giving sex education or, understanding that importance of communication between parents and children are important elements. So, what are some of the things we do to address this behavioral change in that sense? Because these are all kind of mixed up, right? The challenges come in both forms. So I think it will get answered in the solutions part, but just wanted to highlight this.
Yes, Sarah, you're right. I was going to cover these in the forthcoming slides because we need to have structured interventions around parental engagement with schools on the gender part. So I would deal with them in the forthcoming slides. Maybe Ajay can also add.
No, Tanvi, I think in the solution slide we can discuss it.
So should I share the slide?
Sure, sure. Yes.
So one is that while designing solutions, the same 7 steps that I talked about, this is how we design the solutions. This is how we try to make the communities work with us so that they the intervention can be aligned to their needs. I will not dwell on those slides again. Here are a few things that we do while designing the solutions. So one is that, as I mentioned earlier, that we always work through local volunteers, local people who reside in the community. So they know the local language, they work with them. So they are equipped with the technical skills and the facilitation skills so that they can work with the community. And whatever data we get from the community, we constantly feed it back to them. We don't use it just for evidence building, but we also share it back with them because that hits them. The data is something that when they see, they realize that this is where they are. Also, I would like to share that CINI when CINI came to Jharkhand in 2000, so 23 years back, the whole idea was to work with local civil society organizations and to capacitate them so that they can on the one hand they can provide technical assistance to the government and also work through the same ecological framework with different communities. So what we did, we started bringing together civil societies, and we became a kind of a secretariat for a huge network on child rights, and huge campaigns, statewide campaigns used to be held. Currently, it's not going on because of the sub-granting issue on the FCRA, but we this network is still connected. It is called the Civil Society Network for Child Rights, CSNCR. And through this network, I will talk in the forthcoming slides. We did a lot of campaigns, and the voices of these local communities came out through the local organizations. Then we started to, I had mentioned that we do this step called institutionalization, the second step. So this is all about awakening these systems that are already there. So now, as we are all aware that the Panchayati Raj system, this is also going to get revamped. It is going to get into the mission mode. Like we have the National Health Mission, now we will have the Gram Swaraj Abhiyan. So the Panchayati Raj system, it might also now function through societies. We are hoping that we will have trained staff over there. And as a technical agency, we would want to share these learnings with the Gram Swaraj Abhiyan, also with the Livelihood Promotion Society, which has formed women collectives across the state. So we are working with them. And also, there is the Rashtriya Kishore Swasth Karyakram, which has peer educators across all the RKSK districts, and then with the frontline workers. So what we do is we don't create any parallel systems. We work with the government, and the government also knows that these are the organizations who are there on the ground. So for instance, if there is any training on SRHR or family planning or child protection or nutrition, so we are a few NGOs who are always looked up at by the government, and we bring in all this experience to capacitate the frontline workers and other people who are linked to the system. Yeah. So right now, it's all about this.
Thank you, Ms. Tanvi. I'll request Mr. Ajay also to share his thoughts on how the solutions are built. So, yeah.
I think the solutions are more or less covered by Tanvi in her slide also. So we also intervene in such a way that there 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 is a building up of trust and rapport in the community, so that they can actually take the ownership in the decision making as well as the designing the intervention. Then developing culturally sensitive programs, like we have to take care of the culture and the context of the society or the community that we are going to work. Providing education and awareness is again like education or awareness is in the sense like वहाँ पर जो भी लोग जिनको हम एज अ लीडर या फिर एज अ कम्युनिटी वर्कर के रूप में देख रहे हैं, तो उनका कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग, उनका अपना जो डेवलपमेंट है उस पर हम लोग थोड़ा फोकस करते हैं. Inclusivity, because that is also very important. Gender-wise inclusiveness or ability-wise inclusiveness, skill-wise inclusiveness. So we used to take care of that. And then providing resources. So these are not again the financial resources, but the resources related to skills, the knowledge building, and their own capacity कि वो एक लीडर के रूप में किस तरीके से आगे लेकर के जा सके. एंड ऑल्सो जब भी हम किसी जगह पर मार्जिनलाइज्ड कम्युनिटीज, स्पेशली जहाँ पर हम काम करते हैं और वहाँ पर हम सॉल्यूशंस के बारे में बात करते हैं, तो वी ऑलवेज टुक इट इनटू कंसिडरेशन कि वहाँ पर ना कि सिर्फ हम एडल्ट्स से बात कर रहे हैं, बल्कि जैसा तन्वी ने कहा कि यूथ ग्रुप्स एंड एडोलेसेंट ग्रुप्स आल्सो प्ले अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट रोल। क्योंकि जब हम एडल्ट से बात करते हैं तो देयर पर्सपेक्टिव आर स्लाइटली डिफरेंट देन द एडोलेसेंट ग्रुप्स। सो एडोलेसेंट ग्रुप्स आल्सो प्ले अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट रोल कि हम जब डिजाइन कर रहे हैं सॉल्यूशन, सो दे आल्सो टेक एन एक्टिव रोल इन दैट and they can actually suggest us, they can give feedback on it, and then we can actually bring out solutions better. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Ajay. So, what I am hearing from Ms. Tanvi and Mr. Ajay is a lot on, how engaging communities themselves to get feedback and kind of understanding, their needs to build these solutions would be important. There's a hand raised, and I think Kriti would like to share a question. Go ahead, Kriti.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much, Tanvi and Ajay, for such a enriching session. So my question is around agency building for the children and adolescents themselves. While Ajay very briefly touched this upon in the last few seconds, however, just wanted to understand that while we are enabling the capabilities and capacities of the communities, through these volunteers and local champions, and also like the provision of resources per se, but would love to know more about how children and adolescents are directly enabled, to feel more empowered and act accordingly. And also, how it is perceived by the general population, in this case, the community or the parent community per se. Is there a resistance towards that? And if there is, then how is that mitigated? What are the steps taken by your organizations? Yeah.
Thank you, Priti. Sarah, may I take that?
Sure, please go ahead.
Okay, so Kriti, there are two kinds of ways in which we undertake the agency building of adolescents. So one is through school-based intervention. So we try to start young and maybe around class 6, when children they are able to understand technical things. So we work through school-based curriculum. So we have our own module called Spandan module, which has got 21 activity based sessions, which has life skills, it has SRHR, it has menstrual hygiene management, it has mental wellness sessions. So these sessions in a structured way, they are taken through the school environment, they are taken to the children. So what we do is we build in classes within the school timetable, and I'm talking about government schools, and we track each session, how we have checklists, and through these checklists we track. Then there are other ways, like we work with the child care institutions. We have MOUs with them, and we are trying to ensure that children in the shelter homes, they are speedily sent back to either their homes or homes of their kins or foster care, whatever way. So, through these child care institutions, we are again rolling out this Spandan module, and we are having these sessions with the adolescents who, and we are tracking these sessions. We are tracking the behavioral changes, the how the agency has been built. Again, now at the community level, there are children who are not attending school on a regular basis, and with these children, we again take up these sessions at the community level. We are again tracking them. And we are also parallelly sitting with the parents. We have a module on parental engagement. So that module is rolled out with the parents. And this is how we try to triangulate our work at different levels. And we are now trying to assess how this change has come. Though we have case studies and testimonials, stories of change, but we are now also looking at data which shows how child marriages are coming down, or how teenage pregnancies are coming down, or how girls are able to, take their decisions if a girl decides to marry at 16 years of age, then what are the repercussions? She should be able to understand whether it is fine for her to go for that marriage. If she thinks she is equipped, she can go ahead. So these are some of the things that we are doing with them, and we are also trying to initiate discourses on the third gender, on the concept of the third gender also. So this is how agency building is happening at different levels.
Thank you so much, Tanvi. That was super helpful. Ajay, were you saying something?
I would just like to mention one story where we have tried to build the agency of children. So here in Gram Sabha, there is no practice of involving children in the Gram Sabha, or women, means men used to be present in the Gram Sabha. So what happened in the Gram Sabha, they generally have an accounting system. They used to discuss, and they have some fine system who are not present in the last Gram Sabha or like that. So they used to deposit money. They have a proper cash flow or ledger to maintain the accounts. So what happened in our financial program, means what we run with the children. So there is a manager and assistant manager who is taking care of the cash book and ledger of that specific cooperative, children's cooperative. So one time what happened when the Gram Sabha was not getting the proper detail of the money, means they have not added it properly or subtracted it properly, and they were not able to find the error. So they have asked these two managers and assistant managers to come and means a sort of auditing the accounts. So they did that. They found out the error, and they have notified that this is the error happened here in this part of the ledger or cash flow. So from that time, so I would say there is a 3 months auditing process in that Gram Sabha, and where the children are getting involved into it whenever the audit happens in that Gram Sabha. So this was one of the stories where we had a chance to build the agency of children.
That's wonderful to know. So just to, share like an incident and also, the rationale behind why I'm asking, why I asked this question was during my academic days, I was doing this internship where we used to go to these government schools and primarily talk to, grade 6 to 9 students about 4 specific topics. One was gender, the other one was caste, religion, and the fourth one, I think, was social equity, basically class in other words. And while we used to discuss so much and, have these candid conversations, so the school that I was tagged to, it was essentially a girls' government school. And slowly a lot of these students started talking about the experiences and the observations that they have in their own families. Say suppose simple forms of discrimination within the male child versus the daughters, right? And in one of the incidents, it was like a very detailed conversation about how gender inequality exists within families and how it's like the starting point, right, for anyone's life. There was this one particular student who went back home and she started questioning the practices at home. Say suppose something like, I remember she coming back to school and mentioning and crying about it, that I think her mother and in the family, this usual day-to-day order was the brother and the father would have their meals first, and then the mother and the daughter would have it in the end after the men in the family finished their meals. And she raised that question to the family and she said that, I'm not going to follow this order. I would want to have dinner and I would expect my mother also to have dinner and the meal with the entire family. And that was not like taken in the right spirit, and there was definitely a resistance from the family, so much so that our team had to speak to the family, and we received quite a bit of backlash, where in the end the family complained to the school that ये तो बहुत ज्यादा, मतलब ये नहीं हमको चाहिए, इतना भी अगर इतना सिखा रहे हैं तो फिर हमें नहीं भेजना है अपनी बेटी को स्कूल. So I just wanted to understand if you also face such similar situations, and in like this might be a one-off situation, but I'm sure because the scale of your interventions is much larger, you might be facing more such more such cases. So how do you deal with this on a day-to-day basis?
So may I, Sarah? So we actually, what we do is, one is, Kriti, you are right. So these are gender norms, which are social norms, and they don't change overnight. And there is always a lot of backlash when you get into these issues, especially from the patriarchy. तो जब आप स्कूल्स में जाते हैं काम करने जेंडर के मुद्दों पे, तो सबसे ज्यादा रेजिस्टेंस अगर आपको किसी से मिलता है तो वो हेडमास्टर्स होते हैं. इफ यू सी द बॉडी लैंग्वेज, तो हम लोगों ने, जैसे ये एक एग्जांपल है, सो वी स्ट्रेटेजाइज एंड वी थॉट दैट हम क्यों हमेशा टीचर्स की ट्रेनिंग ओनर्स टीचर्स पे डालते हैं, हम हेडमास्टर्स की भी ट्रेनिंग करें, उनको जेंडर पे सेंसिटाइज करें. और बहुत सारी चीजें हैं जो वो अलाउ नहीं करते हैं स्कूल में करना, जैसे अगर नाइट फॉल पे सेशन हो रहा है तो उसमें केवल लड़के रहेंगे, मेंस्ट्रुएशन पे हो रहा है तो केवल लड़कियां रहेंगी. तो वहीं से एक वो बज रहता है कि क्या बात है, वो वहां क्यों, हम यहाँ क्यों. फिर अगर आप कम्युनिटी में जाते हैं तो वही चीजें होती हैं. चाइल्ड मैरिज को अगर आप टारगेट करते हैं तो कम्युनिटी आपको टारगेट करती है, आपके फील्ड वर्कर्स को टारगेट करती है. तो यहाँ पर व्हाट वी डिड वाज दैट अडोलेसेंट्स को इतना स्ट्रेंथन किया, स्पेशली द गर्ल्स, उनकी वॉइसेस को इतना स्ट्रॉन्ग बनाया दैट दे वर एबल टू कलेक्टिवाइज देमसेल्व्स, और वो बातचीत करते थे. बट यस, आई अग्री, सबसे डिफिकल्ट पार्ट है इंटरवीनिंग विद द फादर्स. फादर्स ग्रुप के साथ बैठना, उनके व्यूज को चेंज करना. तो यहाँ पर जो एक छोटा एक्सरसाइज था, दैट वाज ऑन फैमिली प्लानिंग. हम लोग फैमिली प्लानिंग पे काम कर रहे थे, एंड उसमें बहुत ज्यादा स्टिग्मा था दैट द मेन वुड नेवर गो टू सीक एनी फैमिली प्लानिंग सर्विसेज. सारा ओनस महिला पे है, और उस महिला को भी, अगर वो न्यूली मैरिड है तो उसको रोका जाता था कि आप, यू यू शुड हैव अ बिग फैमिली एंड यू शुड नॉट गो फॉर फैमिली प्लानिंग सर्विसेज, भले ही वो 16 ईयर या 17 ईयर्स की है. So what we did was we intervened through these newly married couples who were forthcoming to accept this idea. So both the husband and wife, उनको हमने ट्रेन किया थ्रू मॉड्यूल्स, एंड वो जा करके फिर वी टुक अ बैक सीट. ये जो हस्बैंड वाइफ है, ये अपने टोले में जाके अलग अलग बैठकों में इन चीजों पे चर्चा करते थे. तब फिर एक ओपननेस आया दैट ठीक है, ये लोग कर रहे हैं तो हम भी कर सकते हैं. सो पॉजिटिव डिविएंट मॉडल्स, दे वर्क. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tanvi. Thank you, Ajay. Over to you, Saira.
That's Kriti. I would, wait for some time and see if anybody else also has, questions on this, or else we can move on to the next section. Okay. I would like to invite Shari to kind of lead the next section.
थैंक यू सारा. अजय एंड तन्वी, आप लोगों ने इतना ज्यादा चीजें बताई कि हमारा जो क्वेश्चन है वो भी कवर हो गया है इन सारी चीजों में. हमारा नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन था अबाउट द गवर्नमेंट कोलैबोरेशंस, कम्युनिटी कनेक्शंस एंड एवरीथिंग, बट वी वांट यू द enriching and when we are working in a particular set of community and connected with the government setting, particular especially in the education, क्योंकि एजुकेशन जो एक ऐसा एरिया है जिसमें हमें सबसे ज्यादा
एक्सपेरिमेंट भी देखने को मिलता है और सबसे ज्यादा चैलेंजेस भी हम देखते हैं, क्योंकि हम बहुत सारा इंटरवेंशन करते हैं, उसके बाद भी हमारे जो चैलेंजेस हैं वो वहां पर रहते हैं। तो ये किस तरह से हम इसको देख सकते हैं झारखंड के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में, कम्युनिटी के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में, कि वो गवर्नमेंट के साथ कोलैबोरेशन, क्योंकि एक तो इंस्टीट्यूशनल सेटअप है गवर्नमेंट का, दूसरा हमारा इंटरवेंशन की अपनी लर्निंग है। हाउ वी कैन मेक इट मोर कोलैबोरेटिव, हाउ वी कैन ब्रिंग द कम्युनिटी टू मेक द इंस्टीट्यूट। आपने बताया कि एचएम, हेडमास्टर, हेडमास्टर की ट्रेनिंग में जो चैलेंजेस आते हैं वो भी हमें पता है कि वो एक्सेप्ट ही नहीं करते हैं कि आप जो कह रहे हो वो सही नहीं है। मैं तो अपने टीचर को बड़ा मतलब कि प्रेम पूर्वक भाव से बोलता हूँ, आप जो करना चाहते हैं करें। तो इन सारी चीजों को देख के यही लगता है कि अगर कम्युनिटी इंपावर्ड हो रही है, कम्युनिटी क्वेश्चन करना करेगी, तो उसको कैसे कोलैबोरेटिवली हम देख सकते हैं, किस तरह से हम आगे बढ़ सकते हैं, बिकॉज दैट इज वन ऑफ द इम्पोर्टेंट लर्निंग वी वांट टू गेट इट फ्रॉम। आप में कोई भी, तन्वी या अजय, स्टार्ट कर सकते हैं। द क्वेश्चन इज हाउ वी कैन
So,
मेक द कोलैबोरेशन मोर इफेक्टिवली विद द गवर्नमेंट सेटिंग इन
yeah,
एजुकेशन
fine.
कॉन्टेक्स्ट।
So I can go first. So here is a slide. I have actually talked about a few things जो मैंने यहाँ पर दी हुई हैं। So क्वेश्चन ये है कि डिफरेंट कम्युनिटीज को हम कैसे एक साथ ला, जो भी इश्यूज हैं उन पर एकजुट हो सके। तो एक तो जो मैंने ऑलरेडी शेयर किया कि हम कहीं भी जाते हैं काम करने तो वी हैव टू लूप इन द की इन्फ्लुएंसर्स। इसमें स्पेशली जो ट्रेडिशनल ग्राम सभा है या जो रिलीजियस लीडर्स हैं, अगर ट्राइबल कम्युनिटी है तो ग्राम प्रधान, इन लोगों को लूप में लेना पड़ता है अगर हम एजुकेशन या किसी भी मुद्दे पे काम करना चाहते हैं। और दूसरा जो चीज हम करते हैं कि जो अभी मैंने बताया कि वी हैव अ स्ट्रक्चर्ड मॉड्यूल जिससे हम पेरेंट्स के साथ एंगेज होते हैं। तो वो टाइम टू टाइम उनके साथ बातचीत करते रहना। और तीसरी चीज है कि जो अभी मैंने शेयर किया कि हमारा एक मॉड्यूल है स्पंदन, उसके थ्रू हम एडोलेसेंट ग्रुप्स के साथ, अ, बच्चों के साथ वो बातचीत करते हैं। साथ ही साथ एक और इम्पॉर्टेंट चीज जो हम करते हैं ताकि बच्चे शिक्षा से जुड़े रहें, सो दैट दे आर एबल टू कंटिन्यू देयर एजुकेशन। सो आई जस्ट मेंशन द कोविड सहायता केंद्र। So now these COVID Sahayata Kendras, they are functioning as the safe spaces. These safe spaces are where we are providing a joyful learning environment where after school, these children from the communities, they come, they sit there. It's a place which has been provided by the community, hence it is a sustainable thing. And you can see this module on the right top called Lehanti. So we have this module for different classes, and through this is like a bridge module, and it is specially designed to help those children who are not able to cope with their studies. So our educator, they help them after school through these modules, and also we are linking them to different government schemes. Besides this, there is one thing that started to happen in a big way, especially during the pandemic. It was the development of resilience plans by the community themselves. So in these resilience plans, the communities were able to identify the issues they had to face during the pandemic, and then how they could get themselves ready for any forthcoming pandemic. And now we are linking it up with climate change also. So we are trying to create climate change resilient communities through these plans. So because whenever we are going टू दीज कम्युनिटीज, जब भी हम बच्चों के मुद्दों की बात करते हैं या एडोलेसेंट्स की, कहीं ना कहीं ये बात बार बार आती है कि बारिश नहीं हो रही है, सही टाइम पे बारिश नहीं हो रही है, हमारे क्रॉप्स नहीं हो पा रहे हैं, सो वी हैव टू सेंड आवर चिल्ड्रन आउट टू वर्क। देयर इज नो अदर आंसर फॉर अस। सो क्लाइमेट चेंज इज नाउ डायरेक्टली इम्पैक्टिंग स्पेशली द वुमेन एंड गर्ल्स, बिकॉज अनसेफ माइग्रेशन हो रहा है, उनका जो डेली वर्कलोड है काम का वो भी बढ़ रहा है। बिकॉज पानी एक छोटी सी चीज है, पानी जो वो रोज लेके आती हैं, वो लेने के लिए उनको जो डिस्टेंस कवर करना पड़ रहा है वो अब ज्यादा हो गया है। तो स्पेशली एंड पैंडेमिक के टाइम में वी ऑल नो कि कितना ज्यादा वर्कलोड बढ़ा था और कितना वायलेंस के इंसिडेंट्स रिपोर्ट हुए थे। So we need to re-look at all the government flagship programs that are being implemented. We need to reflect on how they are being able to impact, bring about the change, and whether they are aligned with the current context. Because the pandemic has made the children, the girls, and the women more vulnerable, and now this climate change is adding on to their vulnerabilities. Yeah.
Yeah,
Ajay,
thank
you
you,
want to
Tanvi.
add?
Ajay, you want to share your experience?
Yeah, I think Tanvi has covered most of it. So I would just like to mention the importance of inclusivity. I would like to add this because sometimes what happens, because of the absence of inclusion, there are also cases of vulnerability among the system. So we have experienced this in our past interventions, in our past work areas. So बेसिकली एक ऐसा environment बनाना जहाँ पर बच्चों को लगे कि वो मतलब वो included हैं हर जगह पर, और ये inclusiveness जो है बहुत सारे तरीकों से होता है। मीन्स समटाइम्स व्हाट हैपन्स, जैसे हमने जब काम शुरू किया था, सो स्कूल सिस्टम में क्या हुआ कि जो बच्चे बस्ती से आ रहे हैं उनको वो पीछे बैठाते थे, और टीचर का एक साइकोलॉजी था कि ये बच्चे को पढ़ने की क्या ही जरूरत है, ये तो बड़ा होकर के रिक्शा वाला या इसको रैक पिकर ही बनना है। सो विद दैट थॉट दे ट्रीटेड दोज चिल्ड्रन इन दैट। सो ये एक बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट मतलब ऑब्जर्वेशन था हमारा, एंड वी फाउंड कि हमें इस पर काम करने की जरूरत है। तो देन वी इंटरव्यू विद टीचर्स, उनके साथ बात किया कि अच्छा आप उनको एक मौका दे करके देखिए, लेट्स सी, अगर वो नहीं कर पाते हैं तब तो ठीक है, वो रिक्शे वाला ही बनेंगे और कूड़ा ही चुनेंगे आपके हिसाब से, बट लेट्स सी कि उनको एक मौका दे करके देखिए। And then with our regular intervention, regular talks with the school teachers, तो उन्होंने उन्हें भी कोशिश किया, उनका कॉपी चेक करना शुरू किया, उनसे बात करना शुरू किया। एंड इन द कोर्स ऑफ टाइम, लाइक इन 5 years, जब वो बच्चे, जब वो 1 में थे और वहां से वो 5 क्लास तक पहुंचे, एंड दे स्टार्टेड टेकिंग part in different cultural programs, in different activities of the school, and they started leading those activities, तब एकदम से वो नजरिया बदला उन टीचर्स का कि अच्छा, इनको जो हम मान के चले थे ये वैसे नहीं है, ये हमारे सोच में प्रॉब्लम। सो एक ये एग्जाम्पल था। मतलब इस तरीके की घटनाएं भी होती हैं जब हम एजुकेशन सिस्टम में जाते हैं। और ये सिर्फ गवर्नमेंट स्कूल या प्राइवेट स्कूल नहीं, हर जगह पे होता है। गवर्नमेंट स्कूल में हमें लगता है कि अच्छा उन्होंने सभी बच्चों को जो है वहां पर स्पेस दिया है, बट जब हम अंदर काम करते हैं, मुझे लगता है कि तन्वी भी इससे एग्री करेंगे, जब हम अंदर घुस के जब काम करते हैं तब पता चलता है कि अच्छा सिनेरियो क्या है। सो दैट्स द रीजन, अगेन एक संस्था को या एक सोशल वर्कर को वहां इंटरवीन करने की जरूरत पड़ती है। So ये एक important aspect है, and apart from that, the local leaders also play a very important role when it comes to education, because local leaders, SMCs, they are the backbone of the education system. So अगर हम उनके साथ intervene नहीं करेंगे तो वो collaborative approach नहीं आ पाएगा, and we will miss something. So it's very important to intervene in this way. I think that's all from my side.
Yeah, thank you, Ajay. Thank you, Tanvi. I completely agree because when we start working with the different community, bringing them together, so this traditional leadership, people influential in that. Second, you're talking about talking about the safe space, like utilization of a space for the children, very important. So, apart from that, like inclusion thing. Just going ahead on this discussion, but taking it forward to discussion, I want to understand. We basically trying to understand about how the organization, your organization, CINI and Pratigya, enabling the different community uh, voices, like how these voices, how these are, how their aspirations are getting aligned with the government stakeholder. Do you have any example? Do you have any experience or any kind of intervention which you have done in the past or doing in the present? So could you share your experience in that? How can this organization bringing the different community wise and getting affected or getting aligning with the government stakeholder? Tanvi, I would like to invite you first. It is
Yeah.
possible.
So there is just one slide that I would share on this. इस स्लाइड में आप देख सकते हैं लेफ्ट हैंड साइड में देयर इज दिस कम्युनिटी एंड दिस लेडी हु इज होल्डिंग अप द माइक शी इज द सहिया सो दिस इज अ पब्लिक हियरिंग एंड ये जो कम्युनिटी वॉइसेस की बात कर रहे हैं तो दिस इज
तन्वी
वन
थोड़ा
इनिशिएटिव
तन्वी थोड़ा सैया के बारे में बता दो क्योंकि बहुत सारे लोगों को सैया का पता
यस
नहीं होगा कि
यस आई
सैया
एम
किसको
कमिंग
बोलते
टू दैट हाँ तो सहिया तो आशा वर्कर है झारखंड में आशा वर्कर को वी कॉल सहिया सो अराउंड 2008-9, CINI piloted a concept called community-based monitoring of health services. So this was essentially a part of the National Health Mission. So they were mandated to do this, and CINI piloted it on the ground. So what this community-based monitoring of health systems is about, this is an exercise, a monitoring exercise, which is led by the community. So, to start with, we had gone to some communities, rural communities in the tribal belts, and we had oriented them on their health and nutrition entitlements. So, adolescents, everybody in the village, they were a part of these meetings, and they were also aware that these are our entitlements. So, then we gave them a scorecard and we told them that you rate the services that are being provided to you. आपको जो आंगनवाड़ी से सर्विस मिल रही है जो सब सेंटर से सर्विस मिल रही है you rate it. So they rated it as red if it is bad, as yellow if it is satisfactory, and as green if it is good. So a community scorecard was generated on the health and nutrition services, and the community then they rated it. They rated the services. Then they went to these public hearings. जिसका पिक्चर यहाँ पे लगा हुआ है and that lady in the blue suit, she is the mission director of the National Health Mission. So in front of her, this scorecard was presented, and then these sahiyas, these women from the communities, they also presented specific cases. There were also ladies who had come with the oil and the whatever they had got from the Anganwadi center, and they just kept it in front of the mission director that this is what yahi aapne humko diya hai, and see, look at the quality of it. So on each of the issues raised, action taken reports were prepared, and this exercise was called public hearing. So every public hearing had an action taken report, and the BDO, the civil surgeon, they were present. So this was about the health services. Again, then this practice was replicated to the education system. There was the term, then again, it was slightly changed. It was social audit. So social audit is not just about rating, it is also about looking at the government registers, how they are documenting their processes. So this is more detailed, but it is very similar. Here also the community rates the services. So a social audit on quality education was done. And in this journey, several NGOs came together with CINI, and this was like a mass movement, and this was like a campaign that went across the state. So community based monitoring on nutrition services, special gram sabhas on newborn care, then village health nutrition days, they were monitored, then quality education was monitored, and now there is a social audit unit which is institutionalized within the rural development department, and it is a separate independent department which is invited by different line departments to undertake their social audits. So on one hand, this is happening, and on the other hand, this led to a lot of empowerment of the local civil society organizations, because they got connected to the system and they were able to do this exercise in their communities. So there was a massive awareness created and advocacy in a big way it was being done. Also, in this process, many people they got linked to the government programs that they were not able to access. So this is one best practice that I wanted to share. Also, as I said in the beginning, also whenever we work, we always work with the government systems. We never create any parallel systems, and we try to strengthen the government programs, because it is out of bandwidth of any NGO to continue to work like the government does. So we should never create any systems, especially we should not like this is something that I always advocate on. We should not provide refreshments or anything in any community level meetings, because then it becomes like a you know कि आपने तो हमको चाय नहीं पिलाया तो हम नहीं आएंगे आपकी बैठक में. So it is not our बैठक, it is the community बैठक, and they have to understand this. So for our issues, we have to sit, we don't have to wait for chai and nashta and refreshments. So these are certain things that we are very rigid on when we work at the community level. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanvi. Thank you very much. Ajay, would you like to share your experience? Yeah, share the example, something.
Yeah. I would share a recent experience actually. So in 2021, we got a grant from Girls Not Brides, the International Alliance to End Child Marriage. So the grant was for 4 organizations working in 4 nations. So in Asia, one organization from Pakistan and one organization from India got the grant. So we got this grant to run the national campaign against child marriage. So we have to run it through our own ideas. So our idea was to reach out the political and religious leaders and to amplify the voices against child marriage. So what happened here? So when the campaign was inaugurated, so it was inaugurated in the campus of Ranchi Municipal Corporation. The mayor and deputy mayor themselves inaugurated it, and it took a lot of time to bring them on board against this campaign, because they were understanding the issue, but they didn't have any budget, or they didn't have any, you can say the, वो चाइल्ड मैरिज जो है उनके यहाँ पर वो मुद्दा ही नहीं है. It's not coming under any of their agenda. So हमारा जो इंटरवेंशन था वो ये था कि हमें किसी तरीके से उनके शहर में जो स्पेस है वहां पर हम किस तरीके से चाइल्ड मैरिज के खिलाफ जो है कुछ ला सकें. So slowly conversations went on, and finally जब कम्युनिटी से लोग उठ करके उनके पास पहुंचे और उन्होंने बताया कि आपके ही एरिया में, आपके ही पूरे बाउंड्री में इतने सारे चाइल्ड मैरिजेस के इंसिडेंट होते हैं जिसको कहीं रजिस्टर नहीं किया जाता है, बट वी नो कि ये हो रहे हैं और हम बहुत परेशान भी हैं इससे. तो देन वहां पर जो है रांची म्यूनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशन के जो जितने भी सिटी बसेस, उन सिटी बसेस में उन्होंने वो स्पेस दिया कि हम यहाँ पर चाइल्ड मैरिज के खिलाफ जो है मैसेजिंग अवेयरनेस जो है करेंगे. So like this, a voice was raised through the help of community, and it reaches to the authorized persons. And then थोड़ा टाइम लगा, it took 7 to 8 months, but आज तो खैर बहुत मतलब उसमें धूल की एक लेयर चढ़ गई है, but इनिशियली जो है सारे बसेस में जो है वो मैसेजिंग स्टार्ट हुआ, एंड इस तरीके से एक कैंपेन के रूप में चाइल्ड मैरिज के खिलाफ जो है म्यूनिसिपल कॉरपोरेशन का एक स्पेस को हमने इस्तेमाल किया. So like this, many other incidents happen, but not very much with the government authorities. But अगर मैं ये मातृशक्ति फुटबॉल टूर्नामेंट की बात करूँ तो last year 480 mothers played the tournament, and 32 teams they came up with their own issue from their communities. तो हमने उसे level wise divide किया था कि जहाँ पर पहले लेवल पे हैं उन्होंने उनका टास्क था कि उनको एक मुद्दा चुनना है, फिर इंफॉर्मेशन गेन करना है अपने लिए, फिर उसको डिसेमिनेट करना है, एंड देन उनको वो इंटरवेंशन करना है कि वो क्या कर सकते हैं इसके लिए अपने सामुदायिक स्तर पर. सो इट वेंट ऑन वेरी स्मूथली और बहुत अच्छे से हुआ. सो 9 प्रोमिनेंट इश्यूज पर जो है 23 कम्युनिटीज से महिलाएं अपने अपने इश्यूज के लिए खेली और उसके लिए उन्होंने काम भी किया. लाइक अगर डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस का कोई इशू था तो उनके टास्क में वो जा करके पुलिस के पास, जा करके लॉयर के पास, दे ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड कि लॉ किस तरीके से उनके साथ है, कब हम उनके पास जा सकते हैं, कैसे हम उन तक पहुंच सकते हैं, लाइक दैट. सो इट हैपेंड लाइक दैट. या, थैंक्स.
थैंक यू वेरी मच अजय और तन्वी. आपने काफी अच्छा एग्जाम्पल दिया है, स्पेशली जो बात जो जो एक्सपीरियंस इन्हीं का रहा है, हेल्थ कार्ड और हेल्थ रिलेटेड सोशल मैपिंग से लेकर के एक पूरे के पूरे प्रोसेस को इंस्टीट्यूशनलाइज करने का. इट्स वेरी इनरिचिंग एक्सपीरियंस. प्रतिज्ञा ने अपना जो एक्सपीरियंस बताया है, उस पे यस, म्युनिसिपल कॉरपोरेशन के साथ काम स्टार्ट करना अपने आप में एक चैलेंज है, सोचना ही एक चैलेंजिंग है, लेकिन आप लोगों ने वो स्पेस क्रिएट किया. उसके बाद फिर कम्युनिटी के भी जो भी पोटेंशियल मुद्दे थे उसके साथ उनको कनेक्ट किया और फिर एक पूरा का पूरा कंपेन चलाया. दैट्स वंडरफुल. और जो लोग क्योंकि हमारे पास समय की कमी है, और जो लोग ये हमारे मदर्स स्पोर्ट्स के बारे में, क्योंकि कल ही शायद उसका कुछ जूम पे मैं देख भी रहा था कि एक मीटिंग को उस पे तो जिनको जानना है वो आपसे जरूर कांटेक्ट करेंगे, क्योंकि मुझे लगता है कि दैट इज गोइंग टू बी वन ऑफ द वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट इनोवेशन in the area of football, like football and sports and development kind of a thing. So मैं अभी इस फ्लोर को क्वेश्चंस के लिए, क्योंकि हमारे पास समय नहीं है, तो जिन लोगों के बहुत सारे सवाल हो सकते हैं, जो भी सवाल हैं अजय और तन्वी से, इनके पूरे के पूरे जो इंटरवेंशन का जो समझ का इन्होंने हमारे साथ साझा किया है, उस पे आप प्लीज उनसे पूछें और जानें. और इनके साथ अगर आपको और बातें करनी है तो इनके ऑर्गेनाइजेशन रांची में ही स्थित है, वहां भी आप जाकर के इनसे बातचीत कर सकते हैं.
Any last minute questions? Very brief questions if we have, we can take, right? Yes. On chat, or if you want to unmute and just share a question, please do. Yes, so I would like to formally thank both Ms. Tanvi and Mr. Ajay for taking time out of your busy schedules and sharing your insights and experiences with us. It was very valuable and insightful for me personally, and I could learn a lot of things that how to specifically see communities, and while we engage with them, trying to understand the context from which they're coming from and how to take on challenges or build solutions. So thank you very much, Mr. Ajay and Ms. Tanvi, for this session, and also to all the participants who have been here for towards the till the end of the program. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone. Thank you Tanvi, Ajay.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.